Marty! Now that we've installed the flux capacitor, great Scott! Whatever you do not punch in the year 2020. Trust me on this, Marty. Look, Fred, I'm still recovering from El Cinco de Mayo. We packed about 500 of my closest friends in that little saloon. Hell, the one in Tarantino's from Dutch Till Dawn. What do they owe me? That hurts, brother. Come on. I thought we were friends, brothers, pals, simpatico. Anyway, still pulling the Mayo out of my Cinco, if you know what I mean. But I could have sworn you just asked me if you need to install a chief empathy officer. Look, you need to relax. I'm talking full-body Thai massage with all the extras and endings. Look, would I ever steer you wrong? Don't answer that. Take Spectrum. I consulted. Seems to work for them. Plus, they're not wasting their time interacting on social media like you tender magenta flowers over here at T-Mobile. So what if a few of your customers commit suicide because of a little billing error? I mean, cost of doing business, my friend, am I right? You gave them the Keep Americans Connected extension. Isn't your verbal word good enough? And aren't they still past due? Keep threatening to disconnect, friend. By the way, if you need some more quality collection superstars, I got a bunch in Florida that are downright bloodthirsty. Now, they're fresh off of Tony Robbins. You'll love them.
Stimpy, you blithering idiot. You've been wearing my professional medical grade N95, but for cosplay entertainment purposes only, mask, haven't you?
Oh, well, I think we'll need to pray about that. And ask your father.
Shut up, Marilyn! The Mark Roman Empire. Also, a podcast. This week's episode, David Fierro. It's showtime. Episode 31, dated the 6th of May, 2020. That's right, Cinco de Mayo, 2020, the morning after. How was your week? Hi, I'm Mark Roman, and I am mentally ill. Professionally. How can I help? I think that's how I need to greet people from now on. It's honest, and it quickly reveals any mental health prejudice. I mean, come on, guys. If a fellow human can say, I'm an alcoholic, or I'm a born-again Christian, or I play Fortnite, I think I'm entitled to share my truth. I am mentally ill. Oh, yes, some of us are even functional, intelligent, highly skilled, frighteningly fragile. Didn't you know? I guess it's maybe a little like learning Mandarin. Yeah, it's not Chinese. Mandarin's a choice, okay? For Americans. I got to explain this to my American listeners. Yeah, knowing what mental health is among your friends, family, coworkers, colleagues, strangers, it takes time to learn. And I got to say, Americans, you can start. You can. I believe in you. So I had a meltdown yesterday, and some lovely people in my life showed up. I'm really grateful and appreciative. I'm feeling a lot better now, but definitely quite a bit to unpack for everyone. More on that in a moment. Hey, how'd you guys like that cold open? You digging those cold opens lately? Yeah, let's see. Today we had Doc Brown from Back to the Future, Beetle. Well, you know his name. We don't need to mention it. And they're in that lovely animated, calm and collected dog. You like that? No quiero Taco Bell. Well, my Patreon patrons, they get to listen to that cold open early. Yeah, it's usually about 2 minutes. A lot of cool stuff. And it's one of the perks, one of the many growing perks for my Patreon patrons. That's right. Mark Roman Empire is on Patreon now. Starting with the Citizen patron level at $5 a month. We'll have more levels soon. Here at tier number 1, Ritze jumped on it and became my first Patreon patron literally the day it launched. She's awesome that way. How about you? You can join, learn more at patreon.com/Mark Roman Empire. Actor David Fierro is my interview guest this week. David is an actor's actor. I can safely say that. He studied at Columbia, performed at Shakespeare and Company. He's got some groovy stage and screen shots, really impressive IMDb. I got to be honest, I love his Zarkon in Gotham. It's amazing. And I really am looking forward to the clips look just spectacular. But I got to see David's health inspector on The Nick on Cinemax. That's quite a performance. I'm looking forward to it since I just finished Westworld, the latest season. Wow, that's amazing. But yeah, I got to jump. I got to see this health inspector that David does. Looking forward. More about David Fierro in a minute. If you listen to the podcast, and I know a lot of you do, some of you maybe you're new, but my cause is Hero Tier, which is a word I coined a decade ago. Venka, Will, and Andy, they're the ones that we're helping right now. We basically help people find housing one human at a time. So the human family we're focusing on right now is Venka, Will, and Andy. They are actually in a hotel in a holding pattern thanks to a local group that privilege, gift, charity, I don't know what you call it, but that hotel room, they can't depend on it. They literally might lose it any day, and it's happened before. And they have whatever program does it. They're like, the sheriff is going to be there at noon to make sure you're safely out. Like safely for Venka? Or they're like safely for like who? Like what's going on here? How is Venka a threat? Venka needs help. But whatever, that's how, we treat people that are vulnerable and in need in 2020. Now, sometimes I don't hear from Venka for a little bit. That's normal. In fact, last week, a Hero Tier asked on social media how Venka was doing. I'm waiting to hear myself. I did see her post on Facebook on Monday, so I'm guessing it's more of the same. Now, just so you know, when you're a stroke survivor, need eye surgery, and lack health care while homeless, sometimes prompt attention to one's phone can be a challenge. I can only imagine. But that's what Venka has to experience every minute of every day. So I'm going to be patient with her. What we did do this week is we played Cards for Hero Tiers 9. That's right. We're almost in double digits. We did that on Monday, as we do every Monday. And Hero Tier TBD. That's right. Sometimes our Hero Tiers are anonymous. Sometimes they have a name. Sometimes it's their real name. Sometimes they've yet to pick their public Hero Tier name. That happens. It's cool. And in one of those cases, we had someone who's a TBD, but I know who they are. I got their Hero Tier number. Got it matched to the winning card. They won an official 77th Academy Awards poster, the international version. Yeah, no pesky little ABC logo on the bottom. Autographed by none other than the designer of the poster himself, Brett Davidson of Brett Davidson Creative. Brett Davidson is also a Hero Tier. See how that works? Yeah. And next week's Cards for Hero Tiers prize. Did I say next weeds? What's going on here? Next week's Cards for Hero Tiers prize is a surprise. Sometimes we do that too. Follow Hero Tier on Instagram at Hero Tier Graham and discover what it's all about. For everything else, Hero Tier at herotier.org. Hi, I'm Mark Roman, and I am mentally ill professionally. So how can I help? I like that greeting. I think I'm going to keep that one. Maybe, encourage others to use it, I mean, someone can get in my face and say, I'm a born again Christian and you need to know about Jesus. I think I'm entitled to, in everyday public encounters, personal, business, otherwise say, hi, I'm mentally ill professionally. How can I help? And people do that puppy dog thing, right? Where they kind of twist their go, Shaggy. And that's good because people start asking questions. They get curious. And that's a sign that maybe there might be sometimes just curiosity leads to discovery. And here we say it, education. Yeah, we might learn something new. and make the world a slightly better place. Heavens to Betsy. So it all starts, I suppose. I spent hours crafting this Facebook post. And if any of my listeners are fellow writers, you know how excruciating the writing process can be at times. And that was definitely the case yesterday, only because I was feeling it. Yeah, this wasn't like, I wonder how we should open this show theoretically. What's my character's motivation? No, it was none of those silly little, contrived games. Like, this was real life. This was me feeling the real stuff here. So let me just read this Facebook post here and then give you guys a few thoughts about the aftermath. All right. This was for my personal Facebook friends to contrast with those of you who, thank you if you already are. If you're not, you can start. I have a Facebook page called Mark Roman Empire, but this was the personal page for just my friends, all almost 3,000 of them on Facebook. Here's what I wrote. If you are homeless, abused at home, a migrant worker, or lack O negative blood, I have lots of empathy to give. If you can close the door and enjoy air-conditioned privacy, can drive to the beach, or have an IRA or 401k to worry about, what's that like? We are so close to the draft riot scenes near the end of Gangs of New York. If you are above the poverty line, those of us below it continue to watch. Some are dying. Some might build an empire out of the ashes. And we'll never forget. Since December, I've delivered over $700 to a homeless woman, thanks mostly to actors, buskers, bands, and comedians. And one real estate agent, whom I've never met. I spent a decade in real estate. Today, I distinctly feel like an abject failure. I remain below the poverty line. I regret not working in that last half of February. I had a nasty cold with no fever. Was it the virus? Who knows? But I stayed in, rested. Now I'm physically healthy. But I can't even bring myself to talk into a microphone for my silly podcast right now. I should be donating blood and plasma. I don't know if I'll have the food to replenish my body. I see how we treat the unhoused, the financially challenged, those who struggle with mental health. All carry a sticky stigma that only extreme wealth or celebrity status seems to forgive. If that doesn't seem right to you, please note that I am an Eagle Scout, subversive, building an empire. Just to fucking survive this civilization. And I've had a really bad day. You can suggest I call 911 for help. That's what T-Mobile did after I started a petition to make them report accurate account information during the pandemic so the depressed, financially traumatized, and suicidal don't die. Mental illness is a great excuse to dismiss people who bother to mention the emperor is wearing no clothes, or so I found. I really can't wait another day or week or month for the promised checks. The fact I can't afford a roll of quarters to do laundry, to have clean underwear today, is beyond absurd. It paralyzes me. And yet, I am a white man in Hollywood, indoors, with a few days of food to eat. And right now, an African-American mom in a grocery store has to explain to her grade school daughter why the big man in the camo pants is wearing a KKK hood. An Asian-American Marine veteran just had to explain to his middle school son why everyone treats them like terrorists now. An African-American father behind on child support is in jail for being poor while Black. Oh, and he just contracted the virus. That's all here in America, land of the free. I've got no complaints. But I'd rather live in any empire one of those three fellow humans might build. If one of the promised checks were actually in my mailbox today, I'd be paying stuff right now. Instead, my head is throbbing and I feel paralyzed with apathy and quiet despair. I'd like to be more useful. I won't be today. I'm disappointed in myself. Wow. So that's what I posted. Promptly thereafter, I laid down just for a second, famous last words. It was like mid-afternoon, 3-ish or so. About 8:30, I finally got up. I walked outside, got some fresh, cooler air. Throbbing headache. I'd eaten, but I was still like a lot more hungry than usual. When I finally looked at my phone, it was blown up. There's a bunch of people who texted me, messaged me. People had, Venmoed me money. There's people had great ideas and strategies that I'd never heard of about how to track down the unemployment check and the card, and is it a card or check, and all that sort of thing. Just lots of wonderful, lovely stuff. And one of the people who messaged me, it was just like, I'm looking right there at it. It was the easiest in the moment. I reached out, called, and had a really lovely conversation. And since then, even more people have jumped on board and been just really super loving, encouraging, supportive, generous. And I'm blown away. I'm really grateful, thankful. So you know who you are. Thank you. Hope I reached everybody to say thanks. So here we are. I got a little more financial bandwidth. I got some ideas on what I can do to track down all these promised checks and whatnot. But what am I taking away from this? It reminds me of the fact that I struggle with mental illness. Now, I might appear to be a 6 foot tall, intelligent, fully functional adult. You can see the various things that I've done, my IMDb, what my Lieutenant Frank character's done, things I write, the podcast, all these interesting characters that seem to follow me on Twitter, among other things, however you judge me. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but we all do it. We all make an assessment of people in our environment. And I recognize that people see me a certain way. But the truth behind whatever your perception might be about me is that I grew up enduring religious trauma syndrome, known as RTS. And I spent most of my life not even knowing that was a thing, that there was a name for it, partly because it was just discovered a few years ago. And since then, I've been trying, before it had a name and after it had a name, and to this day, I have to awkwardly explain that to people because I find a lot of people think it's silly. They dismiss it. When people make references to God or religion to me, I have to, especially in times of need. I got a text today from someone who said, God bless, God has created us, da-da-da-da-da-da. What they don't realize, and I can see that they have the best of intentions, is that they are literally triggering my experience as a child growing up as the son of Elmer Gantry's bitch. That's why I wrote that poem. The best popular reference might be Kimmy Schmidt. If you've ever seen that show, it's a little bit like that. So my ability to access logic and use it and be functional, it is a struggle on a daily basis. It's a form of emotional, social, and also financial dyslexia, for lack of a better analogy. So it's a daily struggle for me. I also have a variety of traumas, including being kicked out of college when I was 19, experiencing a very aggressive, well-financed, powerful publicity smear campaign of my character. And ultimately, that resulted in me being placed on the FBI's subversives list. This is all true. It all happened. I'm still trying to process that. There's a lot of other unpacking of those life traumas that I'm in the midst of. It's interesting. I suffer from depression. I've also been in the hospital not once, not twice, but 3 times for suicide ideation, which, if you're not versed in that, that means you are having suicidal thoughts. So that is the reality of my mental health history. That said, I've created several things that people seem to dig. I was really delighted last night after my depression nap, for lack of a better description. The person I connected to, they actually saw my Lieutenant Frank on the rooftop during the 928.com local thing that they do every Friday here in Hollywood. It's called the Hollywood Quarantine Choir. And it's a pretty cool thing. For more info, go to the90028.com and check that out. But they really enjoyed seeing my Lieutenant Frank. They gave me some feedback. And as a live performer who can't experience an audience right now, that was really gratifying to hear. To just know that someone's day, someone who's going through a lot of stuff themselves, not just the pandemic stuff we're all dealing with, but additional stuff. The fact that my Lieutenant Frank could, bring a smile to their face and make them laugh. That is why I get up in the morning. For those of you who don't know, I could give a shit about fame, about fortune, about power. I don't need that stuff. I'm realizing that they are tools and that there are people that lack some of the privileges, resources, and talents that I have, which is an odd thing to contrast with how I was feeling yesterday, because there's a lot of people that are in circumstances a hell of a lot worse than me. And yet here I am thinking, I just can't take it anymore. It's like, for those of you who have seen the classic film Network, which if you haven't, talking to you millennials, you need to go see it. It's like, if you've seen Scarface or Star Wars, you need to see Network, okay? Just, I'm helping you out here, all right? There's a classic line out of it where one of the news guys goes, I'm mad as hell and I can't take it anymore. And they treat him the way, we still treat people who express that. And that's my problem. I noticed that with T-Mobile and Spectrum specifically, because I don't know if you know this or not, under the Keep Americans Connected pledge that a lot of these telecommunications companies have made to the FCC, you don't have to pay late fees. Your service will not be disconnected, and you can have your whatever balance you have, you can have that extended. In my case, I was able to have it extended to June 30th. What they won't do is document that. It's too hard. So you might get a verbal promise by someone on the phone one day, and then the following day, you will get text messages that say your account has a past due balance, pay immediately to avoid disconnection. So my big idea was, hey, why don't we just post something in the account? So when you log into your account as the customer, you can see, oh, the Keep Americans Connected pledge was applied. I've got until this date, extension on the balance due. My service will not be shut off before then. So I can kind of ignore all the other parts of the system, the phone calls, the threats, the text messages. I can ignore all that because they are in fact lies. And this, multi-million or multi-billion dollar publicly listed Fortune 500 communications company somehow doesn't know how to, fix their system to address that accurately. I created a couple petitions. So if you go to markromanempire.com, click on mental health, go to the bottom. I got 2 petitions you can sign. One is for T-Mobile, one is for Spectrum. So they can fix that. And also, I think this reveals they do not have a mental health policy for their customers. Or if they do, it's a really shitty one. So I propose that someone who's a customer who does have mental health issues, that they be hired as a consultant and also awarded a seat on the board, because these companies are fucked up. They just are. But it's like the Depression now, guys, the Great Depression, this pandemic. We need to rebuild the civilization, because the people that we thought were healthy, that were in charge, have you looked around a bit and seen what that was their best effort? That was the best they could do. The healthy ones. Yeah. So I think this is an opportunity for those who are different and looked down upon and marginalized. I think it's time for us, which I know is weird for me as a 6-foot white guy in Hollywood to say that I'm marginalized, but when it comes to mental health, I am. That's why I can't wait to meet people and say, hi, I'm Mark. I am mentally ill professionally. How can I help you? And I can't wait to see the reaction and the conversations that come out of that. So anyway, I could go on and on, guys. We got a great podcast here for you, so I want to get into it. You wonder why I'm building an empire? You know what I mean? Anyway, we might do a special supplementary episode. The lovely human being that reached out to me last night had a lot of really interesting information about how to actually accelerate and get info on your unemployment check in the state of California, and also a lot of resources for artists. So I might do a special interview without any, intro, outro, no cold open, just the interview. I might do that here in the next couple of days. So if I do, look for that, because we all need this information. Like if I'd had this information weeks ago, I would not have had a meltdown yesterday. It's as simple as that. But, our civilization is profoundly broken. So there are resources, but they're not organized. And all of the institutions and authorities that claim to have it all figured out, they have it all fucked up, as we can all clearly see with each passing day in more excruciating, horrific detail. Anyway, stay tuned for that. Hey, did you guys know I'm on the Cameo? Well, my Lieutenant Frank is. He's done now 40 personalized short videos on the celebrity shout-out platform known as Cameo. That's right. Did you know Mother's Day is coming? Guys, Mother's Day is coming. Yeah, which is a little difficult for me, I gotta be honest, because Mom taught me to read, then she taught me how to pray. I've been confused ever since, okay? Part of my mental illness. Anyway, some of you actually talk to your moms. That's great. What's that like? Anyway, you might want to send Mom some Mother's Day greetings. It's what people do, apparently. And on Monday, Lieutenant Frank did a cameo for someone's mom. They really loved it. They posted a glowing review. You can see it on Cameo for Lieutenant Frank. You can also, have Lieutenant Frank roast your friends. There's been some Cameo roast battles, pretty epic, if I can use that word. You could deliver a unique happy birthday message. That's been done too, You bust some balls, bust some vag. I don't know, bust some more interesting gender plots. I don't know, bust whatever you got to bust. Lieutenant Frank will do it for you. Have some fun with it. It's now only $10. So if you like low prices, hurry and get a few cameos from Lieutenant Frank before it's $20 or more. Cameo.com/Vegas90210. The YouTube is popping. Yeah, go to Mark Roman Empire on YouTube and watch the new Lieutenant Frank playlist. I know it's grossly overdue, but it's finally there. Got a little quick one of the pandemic protocols. We'll be adding more soon. My Bill Burr impression is definitely popular. It's been seriously trending. It's already number 3 most popular of all my videos on YouTube. If it's not already number 2 by now, it's trending that hard. Is that an expression? It's trending hard. Yeah. Anyway, while you're there, check out the church playlist. That's right. Since Easter, I've been streaming services on Facebook of the Most Holy Mark Roman Empire Church of Divine Touch, commonly known as God's Finger, until last week when we got canceled. Hey, it happens, okay? The church is still as real as my empire, just no live stream services at the moment. You can watch the first 3 on YouTube in the church playlist. And if you like what you're watching, why not subscribe to my YouTube channel? Do all of that at Mark Roman Empire on the YouTube. Oh, it was so much fun to conversate with David Fierro. It's not David. I know it looks like David. It's David. He explains. Is conversate a word? If it's not, it should be. Hey, I invented hero tier. I can invent conversate. I feel like someone else did though. Okay. Let's not. I don't want to be Carlos Mencia here. Yeah. Oh, he earned that. Yeah. Take it up with Joe Rogan. Don't take it up with me. That's just facts. Okay. Anyway, David, he's based in New York, but he comes out to LA frequently for work, as one might imagine. He embraces the label character actor, as you'll hear in the interview. He's just a joy to watch. He's been in Gotham. He's been in a bunch of stuff. Not the Birdcage. Michael Keaton film. You know what? We'll talk about all of it in the interview. He's just a really, really good guy. I feel intense respect for him, and I'm grateful that I can say he's a fellow SAG-AFTRA actor. He's had much more training and experience than I have. He's got nearly a lifetime of it. I've got a decade, and I'm just getting started, just trying to learn what the hell I'm doing here. And now it's a brand new, brave new world in the industry. So maybe I'm in a good place. But David, he's got the chops. I think you're going to enjoy the conversation we had together. With no more ado, here's David. David Fierro, how you doing, my brother?
Good, Mark. How you doing, man?
I can't complain, but you're in the midst of it. You're in New York City there, right?
Yes, I am. I have only been walking around about like maybe 3 miles away from my house, and I come straight back because it's pretty goddamn scary out there right now.
Right? Wow. Yeah, I had a couple episodes ago, had some friends that are an actor and a filmmaker, and they were literally the last film production in New York to leave to wrap production before the pandemic hit. So I was getting their harrowing story of like getting back, escaping New York. But what's it been like for you the last month or two?
I've been so boring. Like, I wish I could make it sound like it was like real honorable, but all I've been doing is like streaming TV, like watching all the shows that I didn't get on and being like, oh, that show sucked, or like, oh, that show was really great. But it's actually, I've gotten to see so many really absolutely fantastic shows over the last month and a half, which I actually honestly wouldn't have sat around to get a chance to watch.
There's so much good content right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, and we better get back to shooting real quick, or else that's all the content that we're going to be rewatching in the wave 2 of this.
Right. Well, I definitely want to talk a little bit about that, but first want to kind of get to basics here. Now, a lot of folks might see your first name. You probably get this a lot, I can imagine. And they immediately go, oh, hi, David.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not the correct pronunciation.
It is not. It's David.
Any backstory or anything that...
Well, I was born and bred in the Bay Area, and my family is filled with like Hispanic names. And so they, for some reason, named me David instead of David, which has been like the bane of my existence. But but it's really good for me because see, I know immediately if I know you or if I don't know you.
Right.
I so it's really cool for me because like if someone's like, "Hey, David," I'm like, "I don't know you at all." But if I see you, I'm like, "Oh, how do I know you? Like, who did we? Was I
which
nice to you? I hope I was
which
nice to you."
to be fair, for people listening who maybe aren't, they aren't, on television or in film and that sort of thing, or in some sort of way come into contact with a lot of people, like, just from my busking alone, the number of people that I've gotten a photo with that know exactly who I am, but, how am I going to keep track of all the people? You know what I mean? So it's
Exactly.
a common thing. So to have a little trick like that is actually pretty invaluable. And it's not a matter of politeness. It's just, the sheer quantity of people that, we may have encountered.
You go on a set and you were bombarded like by 20 people on the way in. And I remember one time I was on a show and we were at the wrap party and I was talking to one of the PAs and they were like, the thing, David, we love about you is that you just know everyone by name and you're always so friendly and you always come up and say hi. And he was with the girl and I was like, oh, thank you so much. I looked at the girl and I'm like, and you are, and she's like, yeah, I was also on the show. I also walked around all the time too. And I was like, I just completely shot that compliment to hell.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah, I'm afraid I have to report a number of similar experiences. Yeah, it's
It,
like, what are you gonna do?
there's so many people, and then and then not just getting into the team, but then there's like everyone you're working with, or like the extras, and
Right.
you're like, I don't have time in my life to remember all this stuff. So sorry. Like,
Which sounds awful, but it's like that. It's a legitimate thing. It's like, I mean, I'm sorry, but and a lot of people come across. I mean, I suppose like if you're in a life situation where you have a job that has, literally maybe a couple of dozen people that you see every
mhm.
day. And then maybe you've got another couple dozen or 2 dozen people that you see in your social life and or family, and that's it. Okay, I get it, And then you have the random 2 or 3 strangers that come into your life in a given year. Yeah, you should probably be able to remember all those people. I can get that. And I understand people have lives like that. But, when you literally, like, what would the last production you were on, television or film, what would you estimate is the total number of people, not visitors, not onlookers, but just people on the production, cast and crew, that total throughout the entire production would have been on set at some
It's
point in
probably
time?
30 people, and even then, like, I also was really injured on the last production I did.
Oh no, what happened?
So like, well, I was at the gym and I pulled a muscle in my leg, so I was
Right?
not able to move. Well, it basically started off very minor, like, oh, I've got a bit of a limp, and then I literally couldn't stand because I didn't take care of it when it happened. So it
Ouch.
progressed to be worse. So like I remember the
Yeah.
first day they brought me to set. Um, there's like this space downtown in LA where there's just like all these couches, and like I just remember they put me on the couch and like the set medic had to come up and we had to talk about it and we had to figure it out. And that medic, by the way, helped me more than my doctor did. Like I understood
Really?
exactly what happened. Yeah, oh, yeah. That set medic was, I forget his name. I'm terrible. I forgot his name, but he was like so lovely. He like basically
Oh, that's
talked me through
cool.
everything and like
Right.
yeah, no, it was great. But then but then it's so funny because every time we had to do a shot, I would like limp into the space. They'd set up the camera, and then finally I'd have to be like, I can't stand any longer, and they would either have someone stand in for me, or I would just go like sit where I was standing, and then just stand back up when I felt comfortable.
Right.
And every time I was done with the shot, they had a chair for me, and I would just collapse into the chair. The first day I had to go up and down this huge staircase,
Oh
uh,
no.
and that
Oh
was
man.
that was rough. And we had to do it like in a rhythm, like it was me and this girl, and we were walking down the staircase in the rhythm.
Sure.
And my
Yeah.
rhythm was a little off because my leg was super fucked up. Um,
Oh. But
yeah, it was,
that's why it's good to be a member of the union, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I had the bad health insurance because this year, I mean, it really varies on the year to year. Like 1 year I'll have the
Yeah,
really good
explain that
insurance.
for people who don't know about what the Screen Actors Guild insurance situation is like. Like, you don't automatically get it just because you have a card like I do.
No. You have to work. I think you have to make like, I think the base minimum is $15,000 to get the plan two.
Right.
It might be a little bit more than that, but I know that
It might be 18, I think now. Yeah.
the year that I like the 2 years ago when I had a really bad year, I basically just scraped in to the
Wow.
plan two insurance. And I was so happy. I was like talking to everyone. I was like, I called my agents. I'm like, look, I'll do anything. I just want to get my insurance. Like, I just need to
Yeah.
get my insurance. And it really became even like, oh, look, I'll do work that's beneath me just so I can get my insurance. Um, and then I
Isn't
got
that
it. I mean,
amazing that you have to do that?
well, you know what? I mean, like, you got to sometimes do the things you don't want to do. And actually, luckily, I didn't actually have to do any of the work I didn't want to do. I just somehow scraped by. But then last year, I had a busy year, so I was able to actually get the good insurance. So if I get
Nice.
like something horrible from this coronavirus, that I'll actually be able to go to the doctor and feel totally great with like whatever we need to do while I'm there because I've got the
Right.
good insurance.
I'm glad to hear that, man, because
Well, I think
you're amazing.
thank you. Well, I think a lot of the actors actually are going to have issues with that, to be honest, because this
Oh,
like
yeah.
because it's all fees based. So like it's I think
Yeah.
it's 15 to 18. I think it's like 40,000 to get to the next level or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And no one's gonna. I mean, like unless you like book something right out of the gate and like they do the Tyler Perry thing that they're talking about. No one's gonna be working this year. I mean, like
Yeah.
people are like things aren't even coming back till 21.
Yeah. No, agreed. Yeah. I'm hearing, signals of like September. I'm like, no. And then frankly, what I've done mostly on screen is mostly background work, which last fall was starting to pick up for me. And I could tell I was one of the, on the short list for a lot of casting directors, casting background. I'm like, this is sweet. I was averaging like, a gig a week. And then I did a week on a feature film in January, maybe February. And then I guarantee you, unless I have lines, there's no way I'm going to be booked in any SAG after work by the end of the year. Just ain't going to happen. I'm not
Well, yeah,
carrying them.
because I
And then I
mean,
can't qualify for insurance. Like I absolutely know I will not qualify for SAG after insurance this year, without a
yeah,
doubt. It just ain't
with
going to
what
happen.
they're talking about. I mean, look, everybody's wondering if they're going to work. They do the Tyler Perry model, which I don't know if you're familiar with what they're talking
I'm
about.
not. Take us to school on that.
So what they're talking about is, and he's gonna be the test subject, I think, and I think studios are going to be really paying attention to this. But he's going to bring the cast and crew into
And
the
this is in
studio he
Georgia,
has in Georgia. He has like a
his new
whole like
studio.
enclosure. He has a whole enclosure where he's got housing
Right.
and stages and everything. And he's going to bring everyone in, and they're going to self isolate for 2 weeks.
Interesting.
Everybody's going to self isolate for 2 weeks, and then they are
Right.
going to start shooting because they will know that
Mm.
everyone there is clean.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
the only problem with that, though, is that, like day players, background. That's
Yeah.
not going to happen. They're not going to be paying
Vendors,
that
you know?
vendor. I mean, probably like the meal and everything. I mean, catering will be all like on in house, but like anything involving background or day players, that's not going to happen because you're going to fly.
Right.
You're going to have someone stay there for 2 weeks so they can be like, he's over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not going to
Right.
happen.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's going to be the big thing. It's so funny though because yeah, um, I hope they figure it out. I hope it works. If it works, that'll be great. But that's the only way that it's really going to work. And if you watch a lot of I've been watching a lot of the Netflix stuff. Like they can actually do that. Like, they can actually do that. Like it's going to be a lot
Right.
of things like Lost in Space or Altered Carbon, where everyone's inside of the world,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
can have a wide wealth of people. Um, so yeah.
It's going to be interesting, brave new world we're entering. Very interesting. Well, let's get back to basics here. I think we met. I think I was busking on Hollywood Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
He's Lieutenant Frank. The short
Mhm.
shorts, rainbow tactical leg warmers. Does that ring a bell? Is that how we first met?
Yeah. That's how we met.
Okay, right on. And then I
Through
think.
our
Go ahead.
no. I was just gonna say through our mutual friend.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then we grew up. Well, you grew up in the Bay Area, not very far from me. I grew up in the Sierra Nevada foothills in Auburn, just outside Sacramento, and then spent some good time in the Bay Area. Where in the Bay Area were you?
Marin County, right above San Francisco.
Nice.
Yeah, born and bred.
Robin Williams haunt.
Robin, and actually, I went to College of Marin, where Robin Williams actually went also, and I at one point got the Robin Williams scholarship. The guy who I trained with at the College of Marin was a guy named Jim Dunn, who was one of the first people to recognize Robin's talent. Actually,
interesting.
It's very funny. He actually he realized his talent because he knew that he was talented, and then he just remembered one night they were working on Oliver Twist, and I think they were in tech, and everyone was like so dispirited, and like how techs are. Nobody wants to be there. Everyone's unhappy. Everyone's just get through the day, and like Robin apparently like he jumped up on a chair and he just entertained everyone for half an hour.
That's amazing.
And Jim just said, he looked at him and goes, I know that guy's going to be talented. I know that guy's going to be a star. He was. And actually, when I think Jim turned like 60 or 65, they did this big thing at the Marin Civic Center, and Robin came and like did a set, and it was lovely to see Robin work.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I unfortunately, I got a lot of friends in stand-up comedy originally in the Bay Area where I first started. I got into acting so quick. I got out of effectively doing, stand-up every night. And so the only experience I had of Robin Williams live was I saw him, they do the comedy day in late summer, early fall at Golden Gate Park. And I remember being in the audience watching Robin perform. It's a free comedy show they do every year as a benefit. And that's my only Robin Williams experience live, is watching him as a member in the audience. I treasure. That guy was a genius.
He was. I mean, he was the best. And it's sad that that your demons can destroy you, and depression is a real thing, and
right.
And it's something that, and especially we're going to be seeing a lot of that out of what comes out of whatever comes out of this. But
oh wow, can you imagine?
Really, just mentally take care of yourself, and really, just really remember the important things in life.
Right, which for you does not involve Little League. Explain.
It's not
to bring up childhood trauma.
Oh no worries. It was basically all my family played Little League baseball, and
no pressure.
No pressure. And I was going to play Little League baseball. I went down. I think I played it like 1 year, and then the next year I went back, and the coach took my dad aside, and he said, "Unfortunately, we don't think that your son has the killer spirit for this game." And we just don't think
killer spirit. He literally said the killer spirit.
Like it's Little League, but like so I'm not a killer of baseball. They were doing Little Abner down at the community center for children, and so I did that, and I played Senator Fogbound, and I just knew. I knew when I did it, that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Nice. How old were you?
Yeah. I was, I think I was in the third or fourth grade.
Wow.
Yeah, and it just became very clear, very quick that was the thing I was going to do. And then I just spent the rest. And it was funny because I'm like a fat guy, and I've always been a fat guy, and I was a fat kid.
No.
Hey, look, you don't have to blow any smoke on my ass. I know what I play. Because trust me, I also get to see like when I see the people who got the parts I didn't get on all these shows I've been watching. I've been like, oh, there's another fat guy that got my part. But
you're a character actor.
I'm a character actor.
A very revered
fat guy. Anyway,
oh no.
As a child, I was a character actor. Like I've been a character. That's the thing I was gonna say was when I was a kid. Like if there was like an old like lecherous man in the musical, that was me. Like Mr.
As a
Mushnick,
kid.
that was me. As a kid, it's like, we're all like sixth graders, and I'm like, I would like some of
Oh,
that young stuff. I mean, it was
talk
really
about
like,
typecasting.
I knew from the get go, and it was fine. I mean, I told this story before that, I was supposed to play in my school. We did this special thing for Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and I was supposed to
Mhm.
play Martin Luther King Jr. Uh,
Wait,
and
what?
I was, because it was such a white school. Like I was like the only
Yeah, you
minority
think
that was like,
apparently. Like,
it was like there was like a Mexican kid, which was me, and there was like one black girl, and there was one Asian kid, and like so I was Martin
wow.
Luther King because the girl could not be Martin Luther King Jr. I don't know why she couldn't, but she couldn't. But
Huh.
anyway, but then my parents ran out of money to send me to this private school, so they had to take me out of the school for like a month. So I didn't get to play MLK, but the other fat kid in my class
Wow.
did end up taking the part. So again, they don't think of a color for MLK; they just think of a size.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine how that would go down if someone tried to do that today.
would not happen in that way whatsoever. I
And
mean,
that's
again, I grew up in a place where we didn't see color, or we did, but we just didn't imagine that we saw color.
yeah,
And also that face isn't even in the Bay Area anymore. Like that, I mean, maybe still in Marin, but it is a changing face. There's a more diversity in the Bay
yeah.
Area now.
It'd be like if I played Eddie James, a young Eddie James Olmos. It's like no,
Yeah.
Mark, no, you're no, just
Well,
no.
it's crazy though because like when I would say I left the Bay Area like what 12 years ago to come here. When I
Oh wow,
left, I
okay.
worked with a theater company named Golden Thread. I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean to shout them out like this. It's just that they're particularly known for doing Middle Eastern theater, and like I did a theater
Mm-hmm.
festival for them, and I played every Middle Eastern character you could think of, like anything with an Ian in in its name. I was,
Wow.
like Persian, Iranian, Iraqian. I was everything but Mexican. I'm Mexican American,
Interesting.
American Indian, New York Jew.
Right.
So like, and Italian, a little Italian, but basically, but I am not any of those Middle Eastern people. But yeah, but I could do that for that company. I could not do that anymore. Like no, like even like I have friends who are like Korean, and when casting stuff, they're like, oh, they're not going to see me because they're only seeing Japanese people for this Japanese role. They're not going to see Koreans for this Japanese. I mean, it's really,
Specific.
it's good. It's actually very
Yeah.
important to be that
Oh,
specific.
absolutely.
It's just very funny that like 12 years ago they're like, you could be any brown person.
Right. Exactly. You're not white, so yeah, you're like the utility.
Get in
Oh,
there.
oh my God. Now you've got some pretty impressive not only things that you've done, but your training. You got off to a really good start. Understood you got your MFA in acting from none other than Columbia. It's pretty
Hmm.
notable. What was
I
Columbia like?
Columbia was amazing, and the journey to Columbia was amazing. But to train at Columbia, I trained with this guy named Andre Serban, who is like basically the epitome of what European theater is. Which European theater is all about these big, expressive characters that are
Right.
really like extreme. And then
Hmm.
I trained with Kristen
Heightened.
Linklater, heightened, and I trained with Kristen Linklater, who's really about the personal, about the inside, about really taking everything, making it so
Is,
personal and small and
is she
true.
related to Art?
No. Kristen Linklater is a voice teacher who is from Scotland, who basically founded so many different. She's written many books about the voice. Like
Okay.
she's like the foremost voice teacher in the world. She's one of the foremost voice teachers in the world.
I should
Um,
look her up.
you should. And her work with Shakespeare, it's all about really taking it and making it so personal. And so it was basically these two extremes of like this, like heightened like emotional state and this really sensitive, positive, beautiful. Her book, by the way, is Freeing the Natural Voice. That's her big book.
Okay.
But it was
Freeing the
really these
natural
two.
voice.
It was really about these two extremes. So it was really lovely. And then in our last year, we started to transition into film and television. One of our big alumni who came and taught us that last year was Anson Mount, who's like I don't know if you saw Hell on Wheels, but he was the star of Hell on Wheels. He was the star of The Inhumans.
Okay. I
He
missed
on
it.
Star Trek Discovery. He was Captain Pike. He's like,
Oh, cool. Okay.
yeah, and they're probably going to give him his own show because everybody
Nice.
loved his Captain Pike. But he really kind of brought us into knowledge of the film and television world and really helped to start kind of like get us connected to the people who would be important in the future. We got to meet some really cool people too, like Alan Cummings came and spoke to us. That was
Alan
lovely.
Cummings.
Yeah.
No way. I actually wrestled with him in the film Any Day Now. I'm this 70s era uniform cop. And in this scene, Alan Cummings' character is just losing his shit because
Mhm.
the child services is there to take his kid. And so I'm literally wrestling with Alan Cumming and imagining in my head, my inner dialogue is, don't bruise Alan Cumming. Don't bruise Alan Cumming. Don't bruise. Because he was like in it and he's like thrashing about. And I'm like, my action is to like constrain him. I'm law enforcement. And
Well, that's
it was dicey because I'm like, all right, how do I mean, it worked, but it was,
that's always a moment that's weird. It's like violence is always a weird moment,
right?
especially if you haven't done a lot of planning on it. I heard that whole story about. I mean, even if you do all that planning, sometimes it doesn't matter because, like, you've heard those stories about what Joaquin did to his stunt people during the Joker.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I would just recommend, like, I understand what he was doing, but I would recommend if
Yeah.
you have any questions about it, go look up some interviews with him, or actually with the stunt people,
Interesting.
because the stunt people tell a very specific story. They may or may
Yeah.
not be true. Again,
Gotcha.
but that's the story they tell.
Interesting.
Now let them tell that story because that's not my story.
Fair enough. I understand. Oh my God. It's amazing. Now, and you've actually you've had some stage combat training too, haven't you?
Yeah, actually it's funny. Had a lot of stage combat training, but the last person who was my stage guy was the guy Kui Nguyen, who's I totally tortured his name, and I'm so sorry. Kui is he's the founder of Vampire Cowboys,
Okay.
and he has this trilogy of plays about Vietnam, about how basically his family was in Vietnam and then they ended up in America. And they're amazing plays. And then he's like he writes for Marvel and he writes for Netflix, and he just wrote for that Dispatches from Everywhere play
Okay.
TV show. I mean, he went from being like
Prolific.
my stage combat teacher in New York to becoming like this huge like to do in the film and television world, which is amazing.
Nice.
I love to see stories like that.
Right?
Yeah. And he's like the nicest guy. Kui is like the loveliest guy.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. But
So, yeah,
anyway, so yeah, and then actually I got to do, and I got to do some fun stage combat on when I did Gotham. I had some fun stage combat there.
yes.
And actually, it's funny on the thing I did recently. There was a guy who had to do a stunt for me because I don't always get to do stunts. So we had a stunt guy for me for this thing, and it was so funny because I watched the stunt guy, and he was he was looking at me and trying to figure out how many pillows he had to put in to match me.
Like
and
you
I
could
was
literally
like,
see his brain gears grinding,
no,
processing
I
that
could literally see him
calculation.
stuffing pillows into his shirt, trying to figure out like where the weight sat on me. It was great
To match you.
It's a moment though when you're looking at someone
Wow.
and you're just like, Oh, okay. I don't think you need that other pillow. Oh, you do.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, maybe I need to take. Maybe I need to not eat so much ice cream. I don't know.
Oh man.
But no,
Wow.
Gotham was fun.
And
I also
you've
got to
been
do
not only in the TV show, but apparently I was seeing on your IMDb, apparently you were in a feature film also named Gotham. Did I read that right?
Actually, I've been around many Gothams. Because I was
You
also
live in Gotham.
well, I was background for The Dark Knight Rises, and we were
Oh, I was
involved in
too. No kidding. What did you do in Dark Knight
you know the
Rises?
big fight at the end where everybody's like, "We're gonna kill each other." It's when everybody's fighting and like Batman and Bane are fighting in the middle.
Oh, okay.
I was in that crowd of people, and what they did was, and this is
Gotcha.
a very interesting background story, which is they hired, like, and they even said it when they hired us. They said,
That's what we're
"This is
here
the
for. Let's hear.
most non-union. Actually, this is the most background people we've ever hired for a sequence." And I think it was like
Wow.
400 background. It was 400 non-union and like 100 union. And what they did was
Amazing.
they took all the non-union down to the streets. We all had like a little bit of stage combat training, and they took all the
Mm-hmm.
union people and they locked them in a room. All the union people could not go out to fight, but all the non-union people could go out to fight because they could fight
Wow.
and they wouldn't have to pay anyone extra
Right.
to have them
Right.
fight. But all those 100 that were locked in the room,
Man.
those are what they were contractually obligated to have. So they hit their contractual obligations by having all those people sit in that room and get
Amazing.
their money, and then all the non-union people were like down the street. And the PAs were hilarious because, and I was like right near the front, and it was like the first take. It was like 8 a.m. on like a Saturday morning. We're all there in like Wall Street, and like the PAs are just walking up, and they're like, and I was like part of the mob. It was like the mob against the cops, so they were like walking up to all the
Right.
mob people, and like, yeah, you should just fight them, just take them down, just punch them in the face, just spit in their faces, and beat them up, and just take them down. And then they just rolled
Wow.
action, and like the first thing that happened was people just started like running and punching, and like I remember this. I looked over, and this one extra had grabbed one mob guy had grabbed like one of the cop extras and was like hitting his head against the wall. But then they called cut
Wow.
because they're like, hey, we didn't mean that you were supposed to make contact. And people have like
Oh my
blood like coming down their faces, and like it was
Wow.
like rough. And I'm sure a lot of that footage ended up in the movie because every other take was like us like missing. But then even when we were doing the missing, they're still like, yeah, you guys can't do that. You guys can't do that. But then they'd be like, you guys can't do that. But you can still go over there and mess them up. Like still like mess them up. But you guys really can't do that. And
Wow.
then like we went back in, and then they'd keep stopping every once in a while. I'd be like, guys, seriously, you guys have to stop beating each other up like this. And it was a rough morning. I mean, I think half the people didn't come back the second day because it was just
Amazing.
not worth the $65 or whatever $80 that we made that day to
Yeah.
walk around with black and blue marks. But then so I did this. So one of the first things I did was I did this pilot that Francis Lawrence, who directed the Hunger Game movies, did.
Oh wow.
Named Gotham, and it starred like Brian Cox was in it, and
Oh, nice.
I forget who else was in it. It was like a big cast, and
Mm-hmm.
it was this pilot for ABC. It had nothing to do with Batman. It was called Gotham, and it was
Mm.
about these two cops that basically like hunted like ghosts and zombies. And the
Of
spirit, the
course.
ghosts in the spiritual world in New York City, and I forget what like Brian Cox was supposed to do. But anyway,
Interesting.
I was like a dead guy who they brought back to life to get information from. And the funny thing was that
Of course.
I didn't have any lines. My lines were that I was supposed to basically go like I was supposed to say what it was there was like a medium who was bringing me back, and the medium was
As
saying
mediums do.
he was saying the words that I would say. So he would put his
Oh,
hands
gotcha.
on me, and then he would say the words, and I was like sitting there going like, and he's saying like blah 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 and blah 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 blah. But I would still have to kind of match what he was saying when he was saying that, because he
Right.
was saying what I was supposed to be saying.
Huh.
The problem is that the guy that they got was really nervous that day, and he kept messing up his lines. So I'm
Oh
sitting there, kind
no.
of like staring at this guy, trying to like say what he's saying, but
He's
I know
trying
the
to be your
line.
Whoopi Goldberg, huh?
I don't know what he's saying, so I'm like, so I
What
think
was
that
that
the thing,
movie where they're like they're doing the Ghost, Demi
Ghost,
Moore,
yeah.
and
But yeah, no.
what's his
So I
name?
had definitely had to I had to do a lot of like because he
Wow.
didn't say his lines, and then it was actually so funny because I remember that was only supposed to be like a 1 day shoot, and it ended up doing like 3 days and like 12 hours each day, and like I was supposed to make $800 from the gig, and I think I was supposed to make
Yeah.
$1,000 from the gig. But
Yeah.
because we had to shoot for 3 days, and one of the days was like near Easter, I got $10,000 for that, and I was like, I like this
Nice.
thing. This is pretty
Right.
cool. Like, and it was funny because I was like, it was the beginning of what's kind of happened to me is that uh, I can't really do theater anymore. Like, people don't trust me to do theater anymore because they know that
Why?
because if a gig comes up like if something's shooting, I will go
Oh,
take that gig.
yeah.
I will
Sure.
leave the play and go do that gig.
Well,
And
you're a
that
working
specific,
actor. You have to.
but trust me, there's two sides to that. There is the thing about being loyal to a project, and I completely understand that. I am no longer that actor because again, I was supposed to get paid $1,000, and I was like, oh man, leaving this play that I care about for $1,000, I feel
Yeah.
terrible, but I've got to do it. But then when I walked away with 10 grand, I'm like, yeah, I don't feel really that bad about not doing that play anymore. And I
Right. Well,
left
I
them
mean,
on like opening night.
it's one thing if you're in a position as an artist and you have resources, and so you can effectively subsidize, a production that you're in by, not having to get paid for it. But if you're not in that position, like I don't understand the thinking. You know what I mean? Because not
Yeah, but
everybody's, and especially now with this pandemic. Look at how many actors are going to be struggling because across the board, whether it's the background type of stuff I've done a lot of, or the lines that is your whole career. Uh, you know, um, unless you got a huge bankroll, you got other sources of income like the the acting industry. It's going to be hit hard.
yeah, and again, we don't know when we're going to come back. I mean,
Right?
every third conversation we have is like, when do you think we're coming back? When is this thing coming back? And I'm like, I don't know. I hope one day. But I mean, the worst thing is like one of the best movie roles I've been offered in years came to me on March 13th when I was in a Trader Joe's, which by the way, I don't know if you went to a Trader Joe's on March 13th, but it was like walking into a zombie movie because everything was gone and everyone looked crazy and they're like, I
Oh
just don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like shopping in a Trader Joe's, and my agent called. He's like, "Hey, you booked that thing?" And I was like, "What? I booked that thing?" He's like, "Yeah, they're gonna shoot whenever this thing gets done." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Don't worry, it's not gonna be that bad." I'm like,
A
"Okay."
month or two. Yeah, no biggie.
I mean, we're supposed to shoot in May. We're not shooting in May. Um,
Wow. Of
but
course
yeah,
not.
I was like, "This is
Oh man,
great."
that sucks. Right?
Yeah, I had to do a self tape for a play the next day, and that play is definitely not happening anymore. I mean, that's also the other thing is a lot of the plays that were happening, they're not
Sure.
happening anymore.
Yeah, all the live performance. I mean, for me, the bulk of my income was lately busking on Hollywood Boulevard. So not only is that gone, but I talked to my fellow buskers the minute, you know, it's legal to actually be back out there. It's like, who's going to actually show up? And we realized, well, there's some local folks that typically come, and they'll travel like over an hour driving to come to Hollywood to, give their kids an experience. But as far as the tours from, out of town, out of state, out of country, I mean, it's not going to happen. So
Oh no. I
not
mean,
for a great long while.
I mean, if you look at something like Broadway, I mean, I living in New York, like one of the best experiences is to go see live theater. And
Yeah.
I went and saw this play Hangman which was the new play by Martin McDonough, and Actors Equity in New York. They don't do this in LA. I know because I've checked. But Actors Equity in New York, you can go and they'll have comp tickets for stuff. Like they'll have like, it's usually like not stuff you want to see. Like I was in a terrible play off Broadway, and tickets, like comp tickets were that equity every day. Like, but I was there, and I'm like, you have tickets for Hangman? And like, yeah. And I went and saw it, and I was so happy to see this play. It was such a lovely play to see. And it was the last performance they did of the show, because like the next night Broadway was shut down. And I was worried because I was like, oh man, I hope I didn't catch it. Because also, by the way, sitting in that audience, every time someone coughed, you were completely aware of where they coughed, exactly where they were. I mean, like I sat down, and I remember like the guy in front of me, he coughed once, and I was like, okay, I'll give you one cough. But then I could smell cough drops on him. It was like cough drops.
Not good.
That's not good. And like my entire row was empty. So, and you can't do this on any normal day, but like because no one was there, I like moved to the middle of my aisle because I could move far enough away from my perception of where he was to enjoy the play. But you know,
now,
we don't know.
Speaking of stage, if someone looks at your work, there's a lot of Shakespeare there. And for those who maybe aren't as familiar, why Shakespeare? I
think
why
Shakespeare
is it important to act?
Why it's important to acting? Because it's the key to the soul. Shakespeare, the words that he wrote are the words that are still relevant today. The stories that he told are still relevant today. His poetry is still it still resonates inside of us. And and when I do I did this production of the Comedy of Errors, and I had trained at Columbia, and I had trained with Kristen, and I had trained at Shakespeare and Company. And I remember that I had this huge speech at the beginning of the show, and it's the speech that basically sets up the entire plot of the play, which is a very common thing that happens to Shakespeare. And it's the story of how these two sets of twins got separated from the father who I was. And what I discovered as I was telling the story was that I was telling the story of my father dying from cancer, which happened like 3 years before.
Wow. And that you're channeling that emotion. Huh?
When I did that story, every time I told that story, I was telling the story of loss.
Amazing.
And that's the way that you connect, is like you find something personal and you tell that story. And that's how this poetry stays alive. I mean, like if you look at Patrick Stewart every day reading the sonnets, he is coming from a personal
Isn't that
place.
amazing? I love that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And that's so him.
Yeah. It's 100. And even the ones he doesn't know, he'll just sit there with the book and read it. And it's still like the most fascinating thing you'll watch, because it's so personal. It's about him in that moment telling his story of his life through the words of someone else. And those words are so connected to the human experience that they resonate. Right. That's why we still do Shakespeare.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that for us, because it's obvious to me, but I think, for some of our listeners, it helps to hear from someone who actually, is a working actor as you are, with the experience and background you have. It helps to get your perspective on it. Now, speaking of Gotham, which I saw it, I love that show. Of course, I think I got distracted with other wonderful shows, so I think I'm somewhere in season 2 or 3 or so. But your character, and I think it's the second season, maybe early in the second season. Amazing. Now, I haven't been able to watch the Nick yet, but I saw on your reel. I can't wait to see what one critic called the unflappable health inspector character, which is great. I think maybe that could be the title of your memoirs if you did them now. Unflappable health inspector character. But tell us a little bit about Gotham, the TV show.
Gotham was a very interesting show. I played Zardon the Soul Reaper.
It's right there, just to have that.
Right there. I mean, by the way, I kind of threw that off like Almo. Like I played Zardon the Soul Reaper. But I remember when I went in for the part, the place that cast that show, when they were casting that show, Bowling Misha, they when they were particularly casting it, they were in this office space because they'd been in one space where you could be loud and you could be crazy and you could do whatever you wanted. And
Yeah.
they had a year of moving, and so they moved into this one spot, and it was like when they moved into that one spot, it was a very like you couldn't be like it was like I think there was like an insurance building next door, and like they were always complaining about the noise that was coming from this casting office.
course.
So like
It's
so
amazing.
like my whole audition was when I come down a staircase and I'm like, I am Zordon the Soul Reaper. And you can't be doing that in the quiet office space. So they had to actually
Right.
find like one room where they could do it. And even when they were doing it, like, hey, if you could, like, we want you to do it, but just like, please remember that our neighbors will complain. So, be cool.
Wow.
But
That's hilarious.
so like it was kind of this like weird paring down. And I auditioned, and I thought, oh wow, I really liked it. I went big, like you can like I'm like you know what,
Oh,
take
yeah.
the complaints from the insurance company because I'm
Right.
gonna go big on this. And
Right.
I went big,
What I do.
and I actually, by the way, the funny thing is, the people who cast me in that Gotham also cast me in the other Gotham.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Bowling Misha.
Like,
has,
yeah,
like,
he's the Gotham guy. If it's Gotham, we got to have David. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're a great office. They cast me in that. They cast me in Blue Bloods. They're good people. I love them. Anyway,
That's good to hear.
so so then I got the part, and I went to go get my fitting for my costume, and I was like, oh, I wonder what this is gonna be like. And when I saw the costume was so ridiculous, and it basically, like, part of it was there's like a line in the Dark Knight where he goes like, I'm like you, and he's like, Batman doesn't wear sweatpants or something like that. I forget what the line is,
Yeah.
but I had the sweatpants, and I was like,
Sure.
look at this, I got the sweatpants. And then to put the whole costume on was amazing, and I remember we shot the scenes at the jail. They had a set. The big commission, the big Gotham Police Department was this beautiful set. But the thing is, I'd already been spoiled because I already worked on the Nick, and the Nick set was quite possibly, still to this day, one of the most intricate sets I've ever worked on in my life.
Yeah, just from your reel, I was looking at them like, wow, like that, because I've done a few period pieces, and the detail, it takes you back into that time. It was impressive, the set designers, what they did.
Yeah, no, it's amazing because I basically they built
what time
it
period
also
is that?
so they could. It's 1905. They built it so they could hide the lights too. So you never saw a light. You never felt like you were outside of the world that they were creating. You were always inside of the world, and it's so like that hospital set was, hands down the most fantastic set I've been on. The set for Gotham was very impressive too. It was very big, but it just was not like it's impressive for me personally. No
Right.
hatred or dissing there. It's just, it's different.
That makes sense.
But yeah, so
it kind of reminds me of like a typical crime procedural. Those scenes of the police department.
Yeah, and meeting Ben was great.
Like, it's adequate. It gets the job done, but it's like, okay, this is like a CSI on a soundstage. I'm like, okay, it's cool.
Yeah,
as a fan of Batman and watching the show, I was like, it checked the box. Let's just put it that way. And I don't mean that dismissive way. It gets the job done, but it's not blowing your mind.
Yeah. And meeting Ben was lovely. And then the next time I worked with him is when I come down the staircase, and I came down I live like 5 blocks away from where we shot the street scene.
Oh wow, cool!
And to come down a staircase, double guns blazing, and like shooting them off and threatening and fighting was like the coolest thing in the universe.
Right.
To basically be fighting Jim Gordon in the streets of Gotham was like that's
who gets
just
to
like
do that,
highlight.
right?
Nobody got that. It was amazing. It was literally lovely. And like they're like, we don't want to get a stunt person, so I had to learn the fight, which was fine because I really was into learning the fight.
Yeah.
And it was funny because we got into the fight, and Ben's lovely. He's a really lovely guy, and he hit everything right. but the last take, he knew that it was my last take.
Mm-hmm.
And so he punched me in a different way in the costume. So it broke something on the costume, which if we had to go back and do more takes, you wouldn't be able, we'd have to fix the costume because he broke this thing. But luckily we didn't have to go back. The only problem with the Zardon costume was that it was so intricate and it was so hard to take off. And we were shooting this in August, and it was like 100 degrees out.
Oh, God.
And every time between takes, they had like 4 people. Like one person was like blowing air down my throat. One person was touching me up with towels because I was constantly just sweat. I couldn't. Yeah. I was sweating, and they needed to make sure that I was kept at a good temperature so I wouldn't pass out. They were so great. But the big thing was that they're like, hey, just so you know, if you have to pee, just remember how long it takes to take this thing apart. So only pee when you have to pee. So I was sitting there with a good pee in me for like 2 hours, and I'm like, I know how long it takes to go pee, so we are not pissing anytime soon.
It's hot. You've got to stay hydrated. So it's like, what's the balance of don't drink so I don't have to go, but I still need to be hydrated? Like, how the hell do you do that, right?
Yeah, that was the roughest thing of that day. Was just the I think I was kind of shy about it at the beginning of the day of like, oh, I'm not gonna make them take this thing off so I can go pee. But then there came a point where I'm like, no, there's just gonna be urine coming out of this costume if I don't pee anytime soon.
Those are one of those details where you'd think, I mean, that's a production that, has enough of a budget. You would, because the technology exists. You got astronauts in suits that they pee in the suit. And you'd think that they could come up with something. Because, like, think of the people that are, in elaborate prosthetics and whatnot. Like, there's a lot of actors in that position you were in. And there's a remedy for that. It's not a pleasant one, but it's, at a certain point when you're in the suit, like you're like, I don't care. I gotta go. I'm going now. You know what I mean?
I in the end all be all, that's, you gotta get that spine of being like, cause there's also the fear of getting, I think that when you get a gig, the first thing you get worried about is like, am I going to get fired? So you really keep a shy voice to yourself and you're like, okay, I'm just going to be cool. I'm going to be cool. I don't want to get fired. But then there comes a place in you in the job, and you have to figure out at what point you get that confidence. I remember exactly when I had that confidence on the Nick, but I definitely on that day in that suit on that street.
Can you share that?
But let me just get to this thing of like on that day in the suit, there was no need for that confidence. I was like, I have to pee when I have to pee. Yeah, with the Nick, I had a rough first day.
And who do you play on the Nick?
I play a character named Inspector Spate. And
the unflappable health inspector.
Health inspector. We actually we hunted down in the first season. We hunt down Typhoid Mary.
Nice.
Which is very funny that was. Sorry about that. We hunt down Typhoid Mary in the first season, which is very funny because now I feel like we're all everyone wants to talk about Typhoid Mary these days because she was asymptomatic and she was carrying the disease.
Oh, wow.
Typhoid. So everybody wants to talk about Typhoid Mary these days.
Right.
But anyway,
you actually hunted her down.
I hunted Typhoid Mary down. I found her. But so the first day of shooting, we were shooting I worked with Steven Soderbergh on a movie called Side Effects in a section of the movie where I was in the hospital, and my scene eventually got cut out of Side Effects. So but it's fine. But I'd worked with, I had been in the process of that movie with them for so long because I'd been up for a bunch of different parts of that movie. But when they cast the Nick, I was one of the first people they brought in for the Nick. So something always comes out of like every time you audition for something and you don't get it, but you think you did well or you think that they liked you. Chances are they liked you, and there's something else that's going to come down the line.
Right, yeah, you're actually auditioning for more than just the project that you were called in for.
You're always auditioning for the future. You're never like, a casting director once told me, you're not going to get the job you go into audition for.
Right.
That part is probably already gone. You will get a part in the future. And you don't know that part because this is them. They're learning about you in that moment.
Exactly.
But anyway, so I remember the first day of the Nick, I came in. My agents had sent all these flowers, and the producers had sent like all this cool stuff to my dressing room. You know, I'm a series
Nice.
regular. I'd never been a
Sure.
series regular before. It was a huge step up, and I was like, "Wow,
Big
this is
deal.
amazing!" And
Right.
like, I went and met with one of the actors in the scene, and we like ran the lines, and we were both like, "I can't believe we're doing this. This is like amazing."
Right.
And like, and there was like a little butterfly in my stomach. And then we got down to set, and I was working with Steven, and Steven shoots everything. I don't know if you know that Steven not only directs, but he shoots, he edits,
Yeah.
he does
I,
catering, he doesn't do catering.
I know I was in 1 or 2 of his films, just his background. I can't remember how involved I was where I could actually, see him working. But
Yeah, you never
yeah,
miss
he's got a
Steven.
great
Like,
reputation, and I
yeah,
love his work.
yeah. And so when we were shooting the
Meticulous.
scene, I we were shooting the scene. I had to like smoke a cigar, and I had to keep lighting the cigar in the takes, and
I
I
really
just
can't
couldn't.
see you smoking a cigar, David. The image just doesn't make sense.
The thing is, I really can't smoke cigars. I quit smoking a long time
Really?
ago. They always want to put me in smoking cigars. Like I did this one movie out in Atlanta. I smoked like 50 cigars, and I was like, and by that point, I'd gotten past my cigar nervousness. I had
You
cigar
you
nervousness on the
you
Nick.
got like this Al Capone gangster mojo that just like lends itself,
Just give me that cigar and let me
Yeah.
just bring me some water for when I have
Like
to spit
people
all
are
this shit
nervous
out.
that like, you somehow your mojo is deflated because it's missing the critical cigar for you to, punctuate your points before you take them out, This is my town, whatever.
Exactly, but that cigar like screwed me up because I couldn't smoke it properly. I kept having trouble
Oh
lighting it, and I was getting
man.
nervous, and I was
You're
forgetting how much
inhaling
I was.
instead of puffing, huh?
Yeah, and I got nervous. Like honestly, there was just something that
Yeah.
clicked in of like, oh, this is like the biggest thing that's going to happen in my life, and I
Fucked
can't
with your
control.
mojo.
I can't control this. I'm losing control. And I
Yeah.
remember the scene, and like every time that like I was trying to breathe, they would come and try and fix the costume, or they'd try and adjust things, and I was just getting further and further out. It's like in that scene in
Rabbit
like
hole.
where you see an astronaut in space, and he's getting further and further away from the spaceship, and you're like, "Don't
Right.
fall into space!" And like I was like, "I'm falling into space!"
Oh
And
no.
and
They
I
can't
remember that
get up.
Steven was like he was shooting mostly the other guy. We were gonna flip around and get me, and the second camera was like, "Should I do this?" And he's like, "No, I'm gonna move into position to get me, David. So I'm gonna get into position to shoot David now. You could do this." And he's like, "Well, what should I do?" He's like, "Don't worry, we're gonna be here for a while." The second I heard that, we did not like we got through that take, and it was a clean take, and it was a good take, so we did not have to continue doing that scene. But that first day I walked away, and I
He
was like,
gave you what you needed. He
well,
gave
no,
you that, right?
this is still not where I own the scene. I own the
Okay.
character. I walked away from that day just deflated. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I did have a momentary victory. Like, if we're putting up victories, I had a momentary victory because I did it as soon as as soon as he said that, it unnerved me, and I said, no, we're only going to do this once. That's what we
Yeah.
did. But I remember I took all those gifts I told you about, like the gifts from my agent, the gifts from the producers, and I went and had this Indian meal. And I just remember sitting there eating the Indian meal, tears in my eyes, being like, I'm going to get fired. They're going to
Oh
fire me.
no. Oh
I'm going to
crap.
lose the best job that I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And then the next scene I had was a scene where I just like walked down the hallway. And it's a scene that
Uh-huh.
actually has been like it's in a lot of the promotional material. I'm just like walking down the hallway,
Sure.
and I'm very confident.
Right.
And I think I got there, and I still had that like, oh, they're gonna, I just didn't do a good job the first day. I want to
Yeah.
be better. I want to earn this.
Right.
And I looked around at everybody on set, and I hate to say this, but and I have this moment every once in a while where I looked at like the background, and I was like, "Fuck you." I think they were kind of like, "Who's this fucking guy?" And I'm like, "Fuck you,
Yeah.
fuck these people." And
Yeah.
you can see as I'm walking down the hallway in the
Yeah.
shop, this just confidence
Right.
arrived
Right.
out of nowhere like a fucking dragon. of like,
Wow.
I mean, I have a very funny story about that actually also in an
That's
earlier film that I
amazing.
did,
Yeah, share,
where
please.
I did this movie called Il Giorno in Più, which is the first movie I did. It was a movie that was shot in America and in Italy.
Oh,
And
nice.
the director, his wife
And you
was
like to travel. That's one of your hobbies, right?
I love to travel.
Which
The
is
director was
unfortunate during a pandemic.
not going to travel for a while. Last
Right?
time I traveled, by the way, was apparently 4 years ago because all my memories on like Facebook and Instagram are coming up. Like, remember 4 years ago when you were in like Paris and Italy? And
Oh,
I'm like, yeah,
wow.
I very much distinctly remember that
Yeah,
when I'm
thanks for
sitting here in
reminding
my
me during a
apartment.
pandemic, Facebook. Yeah,
Yeah,
wow. Needed that.
but this movie was like 8, 9 years ago, and we shot all the exteriors in New York. The first movie I did, I didn't speak any Italian. I had to learn all this Italian for the movie, which I was terrible at.
Oh, wow.
And then they changed the dialogue. So on top of like, I had learned it phonetically, but then
Yeah.
they changed the dialogue. So then like
Ooh.
on the day, someone had to come and like help me relearn, like learn the new
Oh,
version of the lines.
no.
But I had this huge scene. Like, so they flew me out to Italy because they shot all the exteriors in New York because they
Mhm.
had to shoot all the exteriors. The director's wife was pregnant, so he wanted to be back in Italy as quickly as possible. So anything that was interior in the movie was shot in Italy, and everything that was
Gotcha.
exterior, they just wanted the exteriors. So we went.
Mhm.
They flew us out to Milan. We're sitting in Milan. The first day I have a scene in Milan is it's just me, and I'm reading this letter that's in Italian, and one of the crew guy, the first AD came up and goes, David, uh, in America, we were okay with the fact that you really didn't say any of the Italian correctly because we needed to get the exteriors, but we're inside now. So we have the time to correct your bad Italian. So like we sat there and I was like, Azana, man, we corrected every bit of Italian.
Oh,
And so
excruciating.
it was really excruciating. And then the next
Oh, my
day,
God.
it was a scene where I like went into like a bank or something like that, and I was having a
Yeah.
conversation with a woman, and there was like all these Italian extras like wandering around,
Hmm.
and I was obviously a big deal because I was an American that they had flown to
Sure.
do this movie. Like they could
You're
have
the
gotten
guy.
anyone to do this part, but they flew me in from America to shoot this movie.
No pressure.
So and then I'd had this whole day the day before where they had to like force feed me Italian. So in the script, it's not very
Wow.
clear if the scene was in Italian or if it was in English, because I think even in the script it was like in Italian, but then it
Mhm.
said also the English lines. So like I was so I get a little fear based, as you can hear. So I was a little freaked out by like, well, is it in Italian or
What?
is it in English? So like, what am I supposed to be? And this was the first movie. This was my first movie that I ever shot. So I was like,
Yeah.
super like, I don't want to rock the boat, but like, what the fuck am I saying here? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, and I remember sitting in the trailer with the PA and being like, and reading the scene again and again and being like, is this how you say this? Is this how you say this? And really freaking out. And like, they brought me out to set, and they're like, we're going to get going in a few minutes, just kick back. And I'm like watching, and I just see all these extras looking at me, and they're looking at
Mhm.
me like, who are you that they would fly you all the way out to Italy? And then I'm like, I'm going to eat shit in front of all these people.
Oh,
I don't
man.
know I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
doing this scene in English or if I'm doing this scene
Oh,
in
shit.
Italian, and I'm too scared to ask, am I doing
Right.
this scene in English
Right.
or Italian? Because I
Oh,
also don't want to have
man.
them. I also don't want a repeat of the other day when I had the guy explain to me how
Yeah.
to say everything in Italian in front of all of these Italians who are like,
Oh,
we
my
should be
God.
doing this part. And so I think in the process of me doing all that, I looked over and I saw the director running the scene with the actress who I was doing the scene with, and they were doing it in English. So I said, "Oh, I'm good. I am good to go." And we got done like it took like 3 takes. Like it was like I think they focused more on her because she was actually Italian and had to speak English and had to act
Yeah.
like she was an American. So it was more of a burden on her. But I'm just like, "Oh, this is all in English. I know exactly what I'm doing because this is what I was hired for."
Saved by the English.
Ha ha ha! Italy.
That is amazing. It's funny when you say that you feel fear or have felt fear because, that makes sense. We're all human beings. We all feel fear. But in my experience of you, just a few times that we've encountered out here in LA, I'm struck by your talent as an actor, and you have an impressive, body of work that you performed in. And you've got just this incredible training that I'm super jealous of because I didn't figure out what, when I was in fourth grade, I was having to deal with an existential crisis because my best friend left the Boy Scouts that we were both in to go to, of all places, Little League.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to decide, am I going to stay alone and become an Eagle Scout, which I did. But I should have been doing acting and comedy and music as a kid. And it wasn't until The Big Short, 2008, that I finally was liberated from the first 3 decades of my life to actually do what I love. So it's like I've been trying to play catch up now for this just last decade that I've actually been in this industry. So when I see someone like you, I can't, especially when I just saw in your reel, now I got to see the Nick because I see that character you play, and I should know because I can see the difference between the real person and the character someone plays. I've seen that. I'm very familiar with that, being in the industry. But I still, just the idea to hear you say, I had fear. I'm like, no, I don't know, David. That doesn't make sense to me.
It's a fight or flight response. I mean, that's the thing. It's fight or flight. And some days I'm there for the fight, and then some days I'm like, I'm terrified of what I'm doing. I don't want to screw up. There's so many eyes. There's so much expectation. I don't want to talk too much about this, but there was a gig that I had that was another one of the big gigs that I'm not going to say what it was, but it was a very important gig for me that
Understood.
fell apart. But we shot this scene that was like the biggest, most terrifying scene, the most dialogue I've ever had. We had to we were in a car. We were in like one of those big cars, big black cars, I forget what they're called, but we drove all over downtown LA, and we had like helicopters following us. We had police escorts behind us. It's a bunch of dialogue. It was for, major studio, and it was the most terrifying thing, and it's the most terrifying event of my life. And I told them when we got done, and they were so happy with the work I did. And then I said, I'm going to have nightmares about this evening for the rest of my life.
Just because of the driving, or what was it that?
No, it's the weight of the thing. There's so much weight put on the thing, and so much importance, and you really
the production
understand,
and your part of it.
Yeah, there's so much of it.
Sure.
And it's about again, when these opportunities happen, it's your life is going to change when these opportunities happen.
Sure.
And how these things go basically mean, is your life going to be is it the difference between, being, I hate to sound gross, so I'm going to sound gross, but is the difference between, being a millionaire or building IKEA furniture for the rest of your life, which is one of the things I do. And you know what? I build IKEA furniture now because sometimes these opportunities just don't pan out the way that they're supposed to.
Sure.
But it's very important, and but you feel the weight of that sometimes in those moments where oh my God, this is the moment that could change everything, or my life could just stay the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of truth to that, and I think there's also, I imagine you have a love of the art form too, so it's not just a very real human connection to, this is my career, this is my livelihood, and here's all the consequences of what whatever goes well or goes poorly or the next few moments or this scene or this day of shooting. But do you feel a connection to the art and a gravitas, a sense of responsibility that you want the art to be the best it can be, and you want the best performance to?
Oh, you always want the best You always want the best performance. I think the most important thing is that.
Can you explain that a little? Like what? How does that feel as you as an actor having that desire?
You want the cleanest, closest interpretation to what the director and what you have discussed. That's the closest to the real world. You want your work to connect people and them to see their world inside of your world,
Mm-hmm.
and or their tortures and their struggles inside of your world. Like I just, by the way,
Yeah.
this is the show of the week that I'm talking about. Like I've been telling everyone to watch this show, which is
What's that?
I just watched the show Devs, which is the new show by Alex Garland, and it's for FX on Hulu.
Okay.
And
Debs?
Devs, and it stars a variety.
Oh,
It's
Devs.
this really
Gotcha.
multicultural cast, but in the
Uh-huh.
middle of it is Nick Offerman,
Nice.
who I honestly have never watched Parks and Rec. I kind of thought when I saw his
Yeah.
work that it was like, oh, it's funny, it's cute. It's like I get what he's doing. He's
Right.
using an aspect that people see of him, and he's using it for the comic potential.
Right.
And he's completely succeeding in that. And so please don't think that I'm denigrating his work in any way. But I was like, oh, I see the character that you created. It's very cute. It's very funny. I totally understand. And
Yeah.
then you watch the emotional depths that he goes to in depths, which is
Really?
just so it's just so beautiful and subtle and touching, and it's just like it's really. I love those moments when you think that you've like seen an actor, you understand how an actor works, and then they just surprise you with these things that they. And he even talks. Actually, I listened to him in an interview.
Right.
And he talked about how people kind of know him for one thing, but if they'd ever seen him on stage, they would understand that that's not all that he does, and that's what you see
Right.
in his performance. Is you see the richness that he brings to a character.
Speaking of what you also do, you're also in Hawaii Five-0.
I was in Hawaii Five-0, which
What'd you
was
do in Hawaii
lovely.
Five-0?
It was. I played a magician. I played a magician who gets interrogated, and the
I
funny
can't
thing
see that.
about
I can't see you as a magician. That doesn't make sense.
the funny thing about
Didn't you do a commercial for some or I think you're a wizard or something?
I did do a spec commercial. Actually, the funny thing was I had one more background story, which I kind of didn't want to. I think we should tell this background story about a different commercial I did because it's
Let's
kind
do
of
it.
funny.
Let's do it.
And then I did this commercial for a British, like I forget what it was. I actually don't. It's like a British cable company or something, or
Okay.
British computer. I forget. It's actually so very not important to the story at all. But it's a commercial that I did. But it was for British. It was for a British product, and they showed it in cinemas before you went to go see a movie in
Okay.
England. And it was like a series of 5 commercials, and it was all like internet stars that like how they grew up. So like they had like the howling goats, and they had like the cat that plays the piano, and then they
Of course,
had the
there's a cat
fat
involved.
and then they had the fat kid who danced around to la 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 dee yada da 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 and where he ended up. And so we went down to Chile to shoot this, and they took us out to set. And when you go to Chile to shoot a commercial, you like it's everywhere is exotic. They
Chile,
drove
the
us
country
Chile, the country.
in
They
South
drove us
America.
Yeah, they drove us out 2 hours to a prison, a now closed prison in Chile, and you could tell that this was the kind of
Wow.
prison where people were tortured and killed. Like it was,
Right?
like you just got the vibe immediately on set. Like I was in like a room that was my interrogation room, and I'm like, someone 100% died in this room.
Wow.
And
You could feel the energy, huh?
you could just feel the energy. It was not a good energy. And
Wow.
we're sitting in this, and we're on set, and they give me my room, and they go, "Oh, you're gonna have to share the room with some of the featured background." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, cool, cool." So I had like a little bed that they had, like
Mm-hmm.
I've had so many different trailers, and my trailer that day was
Sure.
a bed with the featured background around me.
Wow.
And so I was out working, and while I was out working, and every time they brought me back, I couldn't get on the bed because all of the featured background were like all over the bed, and I'm like, for fuck's sake, this was my bed. But
Right,
anyway,
right.
So we went out to shoot the scene, and all the background. It was another one of those things, like it was in Italy, where they were all trying to figure out who I was
Who the
because
fuck
why
are
did they
you?
fly? Why did they fly someone down here to shoot this thing who's a nobody? So they're all like, "Who is this guy? Who is this guy?"
I'm that guy in Gotham, okay?
Well, this Gotham hadn't aired yet. This was like we were shooting season 1 of the Knicks, so literally, I was like, "Everyone you think I am, I'm not." And so everyone was like kind of pointing at me.
Yeah.
And the big theory was that I was. I think they thought I was like. By the way, this is like the weekend Philip Seymour Hoffman died, so they didn't think I was Philip Seymour
Oh,
Hoffman.
wow.
But they did. I forget who they thought I was, but they kept being like, "Oh, we know who you are," and then finally someone came up, "But we know who you are," and I'm like, "Oh, who do you think I am?" And like, oh, I remember who they thought I was. They thought I was the guy who's in Constantine. Who people, he's been in a bunch of stuff. I always forget his name, but he was in his big movie was Constantine. So they thought I was him, and I'm
Okay.
like, I'm not that guy. But then they walked up and like, we figured out who you are, and I'm like, oh, who am I? And like, you were the police commissioner in the Police Academy movies. And I was like,
Oh, my God.
are you fucking crazy?
Wow.
Do you realize how old those movies are?
Wow.
I was like, I am not the police commissioner from the Police Academy movie.
Sorry to disappoint.
And then one of them came up and goes, I figured it out. I'm like, oh, who am I? I'm like, I don't know what you are. I don't know who you are, but I know what you are. You are a Mexican. And I was like, what? He's like, I see it in your face. I see it in your nose. You're a Mexican. And I'm like,
That was the big takeaway.
That was
Wow.
the thing. Yeah.
Okay. Good for them.
But yeah, that was
Wow.
those poor guys. They had to like lie face down on these cement
Ooh.
in Chile, and it was so hot. And I remember every time they had to get down, they're like, "You're only gonna be there for a second," because they had to like carry me through the prison to
Of
like
course they
guide
will.
me to the
Yeah.
interrogation room. And those poor guys, you could just, I was like, oh. And they would like get up and like,
Ugh.
get up, walk around, walk it off, and then get back on the hot floor. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Crazy. Bunch of unsung heroes out there. Now, you're also in Maniac.
I was in Maniac with Carrie Fukunaga, Jonah Hill, and Emma Stone.
Nice.
And that was a really lovely project. Because it was so weird. Like, you know, I auditioned for it, and they didn't send me any script. They just, and I didn't even get an audition script. I got to the audition. They gave me some sides, and they said, you're just going to cold read this. And I'm like, wait, I'm going to cold read for a Carrie Fukunaga thing? Like, this is crazy. So I went and I cold read. I was like, well, I'm definitely not getting this. And I got it. And then I went to the table read, and it was amazing because everyone was there. You know, everyone who's in the thing was there, and it was being broadcast to all the different Netflix outreach points all over the world. So it's a really cool table read. And I remember that in that table read, Emma had a monologue that changed, but she had this one monologue, and she did it, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. Like, I was so touched, and I was like, you know, crying because, I mean, and that's why she's a star. Is she can just take material that like she can personalize and connect with you in such a beautiful way. And I found out later that was the first time she'd ever seen that scene. She'd never read that speech before.
Crazy.
But she was able to just in that moment find just emotionally open up to the piece in that way.
Yeah.
And it was really lovely. But yeah, it was a crazy show, and it was so good I did that table read because I completely understood how weird the show was going to be from the get-go.
That's so crazy. You know, David, I could talk to you all day long about this stuff. I know you got to get going. I got to get going. I did want to touch on one thing. I know it's not the number one thing you're most known for, but it's a pretty amazing credit. You were in Birdman.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. Briefly.
It was actually so if you see Birdman, you might miss me in Birdman, because I'm really like a flash in and out of Birdman, but Birdman is something that I audition more for than anything else in my career.
Right?
I have like
so it's like an actor's dream. That cast.
But it was
the story, everything.
Yeah. What happened was that every actor in New York came in for that movie, and they came in, and everyone had to do the Tomorrow and Tomorrow speech from Macker's, because in the movie, there's a moment when when Michael Keaton is in the bar with Edward Norton, and they see the critic, and the critic says like, "Oh, you think you're so special? Anyone can do what you do," and she turns to a waiter, and the waiter then does the Tomorrow and Tomorrow speech.
Mm-hmm.
That got cut, and it got changed over to someone else ended up doing it. See, Bill Camp does it as a homeless person wandering the street. But every actor in New York, every character actor came in and did the Tomorrow and Tomorrow speech, because I came in and I saw everyone had the Tomorrow and Tomorrow speech. So they came in, did that, and they said, "You know what? Would you read for the Italian tourist?" And I was like, "Sure, I could read for the Italian tourist." So I read for the Italian tourist, and then they brought us in, and we had to do a rehearsal callback, because this was a callback for potentially doing the movie with Alejandro and the cast at the bar that they were going to shoot, because basically they rehearsed everything a month before they shot. So
interesting.
So I came in to.
It shows on screen, but that's amazing that they were able to do that.
And it's crazy too, because like, I show up at this bar at like, 10 a.m. on a Monday morning, and I'm just sitting there, and in walks Alejandro, and in walks the producers, and then this like frumpy looking dude walks in, who's kind of like misshaven, and his hair looks weird. And I looked at him, I'm like, is that Michael Keaton? And it was. Michael Keaton looked terrible. And it'd been a while since because like that was the big return of Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
So like he looked like he had had like a, he'd gone away. But he was
that's a polite way of putting it. Right.
He was just getting in character. I mean, he was getting in character, because I worked with Michael on 2 other projects since then. And Michael does not look like, he comes in, does not look like that. But he looked like that because he was getting into the part.
Sure.
And then Edward Norton walked in, and we rehearsed it. And I thought, I got the part, so I guess I'm doing the thing. And they still were not saying that I'd gotten the part. In fact, the woman who I auditioned with who I had to call back with that day, they replaced her. The bartender who was in the scene, they replaced the bartender. They were just constantly changing things up. And so I came back in, do multiple testings with multiple women and multiple children for that part, which is crazy. It's crazy to me. And then we ended up with the family. And it only took like 2 months to get that answer, whether I was doing the movie or not. And the funny thing is that in the interim, because of the nature of the part, they were even thinking about maybe getting rid of the lines that the character had. And so they were also bringing in a lot of background people to audition for the part too, to just have them. Yeah. Because they're like, we could either pay someone or we don't have to pay someone.
Sure.
So like, let's see what we can do. And they ended up, I ended up getting the part, and I did have the lines. And it was fun because that scene that I did ended up in the previews for the movie, and also ended up on the Oscars when the movie was nominated.
Now I got to go watch it again, because I didn't know you back then.
Yeah.
So now I got to watch it again and look for you.
I'm in this little part that like literally like, and then the weird thing also was everybody saw this movie. Everybody saw this clip. And, and it was on at the same time as The Nick was on. And so people would come up and compliment my work, which is always great. It's always lovely.
Right.
And I remember one big casting director came up and like, oh, hey, you know what? I love your work. I saw you and I loved your work. And I said, oh, you got an opportunity to watch The Nick. I'm so happy. And they were like, oh, no. I saw you in Birdman. I was like, oh, you saw the thing where I look like an extra. Okay, great. If you get an opportunity, you should go back and watch the TV series that I'm on.
Where I
And
actually act.
but I'm okay with the fact that you at least saw me.
Right.
But
I'm a face.
it was a lovely experience. And
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, where can we see you next? Since everyone's quarantined at home, or at least a lot of people aren't essential workers and they're looking for stuff to watch. Is there anything coming up? Because I saw, were you cast in Tommy? Is that something that
I don't
can we talk about that, or is that
we'll edit that out. We'll edit that question out.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so I'm just gonna pick up and say where I'm in now. But we're gonna edit that out.
Understood. Done.
So yeah, I have a bunch of projects that are like in different states of completion coming up. I would say you're gonna see me at a bunch of things and a bunch of little things coming up. I'm in the new Aaron Sorkin movie.
Nice.
I'm in a movie
What's
called it's
say?
called The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Okay.
Huge cast. Frank Langella.
Very nice.
Actually, wait. You know what? Let's edit this out also. So let me start that over.
Fair enough. So, Ollie, we're cutting everything from when David first said, let's cut it, to right now. And after this, Ollie, it's good to go.
So, yeah, I got a lot of exciting projects coming up. I have 2 more films that I did with Michael Keaton. I forget
cool.
the first name of the one that was just at Sundance. And then I did with The Trial of Chicago 7, which has like a murderer's row of people in it, to just like, to just go over a couple names. You got like Mark Rylance, Frank Langella, Sacha Baron Cohen.
Wow.
It's an amazing film. It's a very small part in that movie, but it's just like, to be in that room, to see those people work was just the greatest opportunity. And I got,
I can only imagine.
And then we'll see what the future holds. We'll see what comes out after the old coronavirus extravaganza.
The curtain lifts, so to speak. And can people find you? Is your website the best way for people to find?
I have a website. That thing hasn't been updated since like 2000. I think the biggest thing on the website right now is like, I'm on the Nick. And it's been a while since I've been on the Nick. So
what's the best way for people to find you right now?
You can find me on all the socials.
Okay. We'll put links in the
you can go look at my website. It just hasn't been updated since
There's some good stuff there.
Yeah. You got some of the good stuff that's there.
Right? We got into it. I wish we can get into it more, David, but this was just a wonderful, wonderful moment or two to go over your impressive career. And I'm looking forward to being in more stuff, because you're just a phenomenal actor. I count it a huge privilege that I get to know you and I get to interview you. And I wish you all the best, staying safe there in New York, and hoping our industry can recover, soon and quickly, right?
Yep. And I wish you the same, Mark. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Now you want to go see David in The Nick on Cinemax, right? I definitely want to. Wow, it's just a great, fun conversation. It could have gone longer because, wow, I would love to pick David's brain further. He's got so much experience, and he's fun to watch on screen. I'd love to see him on stage. I've yet to do that, but good guy, David. And, this is why I love the ABCs here on Mark Roman Empire, also a podcast. The ABCs, actors, bands, buskers, comedians. This is my tribe. These are my people. And you know what, guys? I just want to thank you. Anyone, if you're listening to my voice right now, you're the reason why I'm doing this. This is part of my therapy that I discovered 10 years ago. when The Big Short liberated me out of the hell that was the real estate and mortgage industries and just sales in general. And I started to do what gives me joy. I love to put smiles on people's faces, make people laugh. I love to do that. And part of that is this podcast. And especially when the pandemic started, I realized I needed to immediately replace my acting and my busking income because that was going to be gone for the foreseeable future. So instead of doing a lot of research on a lot of different programs for financial help, which I noticed had a lag time of at least 3 weeks on average, I just did the basic stuff, the stimulus, the unemployment with the state, and Ground Game LA's mutual aid network. By the way, if you haven't tapped into that, or if you want to help others who need help, definitely check that out. I think it's mutualaidla.org, but you can also get it if you go to groundgamela.org. They got me a bag of groceries a week ago. They are amazing. So that works, even if the feds and the state of California take their time and play elaborate games and mess with people and send checks to dead people and promise that they're going to do direct deposit, and then over the weekend change your mind and decide, let's extend that a week and let's mail it to you instead, because you need to have the letter from the orange guy and his signature and his name in the memo, so you know that he's the man. Could you imagine what a better world this might be if less things were prioritized by a certain person being the man? What the fuck? Anyway, that's why I've been drilling in doing this podcast week after week after week, guys. It's performance is my therapy, man. Doing Lieutenant Frank with the Hollywood Quarantine Choir, that I needed that. I got to do that. There's a lot of cool stuff going on now on Zoom. Not just my comedian buddies, Sammy Obeyed, but a lot of other folks are doing that. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. A lot of cool people out there. There's a lot of help. But there's also a lot of people that, like myself, struggle with mental illness. And if you're not aware of that, you're going to see us do things that don't make any sense. And we try to communicate that as best we can with the vocabulary we have and with the cultural context that we have, which quite frankly is pretty thin. So there's a lot of people that you look at and like, they look great. They're amazing. And they literally are ready to take their life. And you would have no way of knowing, because from the outside, your perception, it looks like they're amazing. A lot of lives are going to be lost, and not from COVID, from depression. That's going to happen. You're going to see that happen in the next days, weeks, months. Is that cool with you? It's not cool with me. That's why I'm, speaking out. That's why I created this petitions with T-Mobile and Spectrum. You can do that by going on, markromanempire.com, click on mental health. We got the links to those petitions, sign them, share them. I'm creating this idea of a CEO, a chief empathy officer. I think we need that. Anyway, you guys know that. Any links to the stuff mentioned here on the show at markromanempire.com. Check it out. Stuff unique to my guests are on each of the episodes' pages, and I'll be going back to some of the past episodes and updating those pages. So you got all the cool links right there in one place. The pandemic did cancel my acting and a busking income, as you know. So if you'd like more podcasts, hey, if you'd like me maybe to replace this slow as molasses grandpa laptop, I've been creating a podcast on, your Venmo, Cash App, or even PayPal truly helps. And many of you have showed your love in the last 24 hours. You kept me and my empire alive. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If you want to hop on board, markromanempire.com, click tip jar. No amount too small. It all adds up. It is all very much appreciated. And on SoundCloud, there's also a link to my Venmo there. Just look for the blue support Mark Roman Empire button. And of course, hey, we're on Patreon now. Did I mention that? Patreon.com/Mark Roman Empire for lots of cool perks and with more on the way. And thank you to all our listeners across the globe. I see you, Portland, Oregon, Dublin, Ireland, Mississauga in the Canada, and Feltham in the UK. There's also another city in the UK, and I'm forgetting it right now when I was looking in on the SoundCloud there. So if you're in the UK and you listened last week, I see you. I appreciate you. Keep doing it. God save the Queen? What does that even mean? Anyway, are you a hero tier? We have been helping House, Venka, and Will since December 2019, and we've been helping creatives since St. Patrick's Eve 2020. We need 3,000 to bring Venka and Will and their puppy Andy home. Leave no human outside. Also, only hero tiers can win cool prizes in the weekly Cards for Hero Tiers game. On our YouTube channel, Mark Roman Empire on YouTube, watch Cards for Hero Tiers number 10 this Monday and find out who wins the surprise prize during Cards for Hero Tiers, which is where we also tease the next episode of the podcast, if you've noticed, which typically drops on Wednesdays. Hopefully this one did. We've found 48 hero tiers since December. Who's next? I know there's some San Francisco Bay Area fans out there. Who wants to be, the only one person can be hero tier number 49. It just takes $5. I'm just saying. It's like Ritze is hero tier number 1. She will be hero tier number 1 for eternity. Okay? Or as long as people, pay attention to our silly civilization. It's pretty silly, our civilization. That's why I suggest we hero tier, make it slightly better. Visit herotier.org to discover more. And you can listen to the podcast on many platforms. Don't forget to rate and review us on the one you're using. You can hear us, of course, on Apple Podcasts, Mixcloud, Podbean, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Also, several apps like CastBox and Overcast. Also, don't forget Pocket Cast. That's what I use to listen to all the podcasts in my ears. We'll add links for all those soon. I know I've been promising. I've had a lot on my plate, guys. All right. Give me a break. We're building the empire. It's early days. I don't have staff. It's just me. Okay. As I mentioned, we are on the YouTube and we have podcast audio there, as well as interview rap teasers, Cards for Hero Tiers videos, as well as the Church, Lieutenant Frank, and Cue Ball Hot Takes videos, or the playlists for them. MarkRomanEmpire.com. Click listen for all of that. And avoid missing out on cool stuff. Don't forget, join my mailing list, the Mark Roman Empire Census. Sometimes we have special deals and perks for podcast citizens. I might change that and start calling you Podcast Curious, because a true citizen is doing their $5 a month on Patreon. It's only $5 a month. That's a pretty good deal. This week's Sermo Maximus is I Will Survive. Check your email for this episode's census, but only if you want to win a cool prize to be drawn in the next week's Cards for Hero Tiers. Hey, you're not getting that census email? No worries. Become a citizen, what we might soon call the curious. Go to markromanempire.com, click census. It's free. Twitter at @TheMarkRoman, Instagram at Mark Roman Empire for the podcast, at Vegas90210 for Lieutenant Frank and the other characters. Email your questions to me at romanpodmail@gmail.com, and I might answer them on here on the podcast. You can email your questions and even your demands. Maybe you got some ideas for how we can better treat those of us who are mentally ill and are here to help. Whatever. Maybe you got some questions about that or some ideas. Email me, romanpodmail@gmail.com. Start the conversation, okay? Wow. What a week. What a 24 hours. Man, as Gloriana Gloria Gaynor would say, I will survive. I'm trying, guys. Sometimes it's hard. And sometimes it looks like I got it all together and I'm literally at the breaking point. That's it's different for different people. I am mentally ill, and we come in different shapes, sizes, appearances, skill levels, intelligence. We're just like any other group of people. You got, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You'll find good people among us. You'll find some evil villains among us. It's a grab bag, but you also will find a lot of hidden treasures among us, the mentally ill. We got a certain set of skills that not everybody has. We have some experiences that not everybody has. We have an empathy detector that, let's be honest, this civilization sorely lacks. Every Fortune 500 company should have a board member that is a paid working chief empathy officer. A lot of religions, like all of them, need that too. Yeah, I've been watching for decades. So, Anyway. Hey, I'm building an empire. I'm going to get a little didactic, a little stirring the troops here. And don't worry, this is all just for entertainment purposes only. Okay? So you can dismiss all of this. This is just frivolous listening fun. Okay? Cotton candy for your ear. And until next week, it takes a busker. Remember our fallen buskers: Clanelyn Monroe, Prince St. Paul, Christopher Dennis. It's still weird. Hollywood Iron Man is gone. He's just not there anymore. Alexander Desser. I miss you, Alex. I miss you. No fear. Hear a tear. I am the Mark Roman. I am mentally ill. How can I help?